Welcome. I hope you enjoy the conversation you're about to see between me and another comedian about religion and comedy. These are conversations I'm calling disorganized religion. God bless. And for those atheists out there, may nothing await you after this life.
Hey, nerds. Welcome to another episode of Disorganized Religion. I'm your host, Seth Lawrence, as always. And this week, I have the fantastic and delightful David Centofanti with me. Wonderful comedian. I don't even remember where I met him. Pretty sure it was in the back of Sal's, right? Sal's Comedy Hole. Yeah. How long had you been doing comedy when we met?
Let's see. Sal's. What was that? Was that 2018 or 2019? I would say about 2 years. I was 2 years.
Yeah, 17, 18. I think it was late 17 when we met.
Okay. So yeah, at that point, I was doing it for about a year.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, David, thank you so much for joining me.
How long were you doing it by that point?
Trying to think. I think around a year as well, perhaps a little less, because I started kind of beginning of 2017.
That's impressive because you were already, you were hosting, you were setting stuff up.
So I was, thank you.
You didn't waste a second.
No,
I know I spent a lot of time in the beginning being lazy. So.
Sure. I try to insert myself places I'm not wanted until they kick me out.
I'm going to save that for one of the Mormon questions. That you guys insert yourselves in places you're not. No, okay.
That's it, baby. The attack plan is insert, infiltrate, dominate. That's it.
Dude, if it works.
David, talk to us about your comedy, man. So you started in late 2016 then. What got you started in stand-up?
Well, it's since the beginning, like high school, I was always wanting to be a stand-up comedian, but I didn't really have that support system. Whenever I would bring it up to friends, they would be like, you're out of your mind. You think you're going to be a stand-up comedian? And I kind of let that get to me. So I've always wanted to do this. And at that point in 2016, I was it's kind of at that ends road where I was like, I got to do this or it's never going to happen.
Gotcha. What made you feel that if I don't do it now, because I didn't even start till I was 31, So what gave you this feeling of if I don't do it now, I never will do it?
I was just graduating from college with a nursing degree, and
beautiful.
I had just spent the last year taking care of my grandfather and watching him pass on, and jeez. It just it was like seeing this is going to be my career. This is what I am now. This is who I am, and that's the inevitable end. No one gets out of this life alive. So it's why waste a second longer? I mean, I was making decent money, but not happy. Definitely not happy.
Yeah.
And
Huh. So for nursing, were you a hospice nurse, or what kind of nursing were you looking into doing?
For my grandfather, I guess you could say I was a hospice nurse. But I was looking more in the lines of emergency. I liked the fast pace. The last floor I was on before I called it was oncology. So I was dealing with patients. There was one weekend where 3 patients were diagnosed, and it just it was remarkable to see how they all dealt with it, because it kind of gave me kind of strength in just being there for them. But,
yeah.
I was 24 at that time, and I was not strong enough mentally to be how they say don't bring your work home with you. I brought every day home at the hospital with me. I was not really strong enough to be a nurse.
Yeah, that would be so tough though. So what floors did you work? Oncology does seem like one of the worst. I mean, especially with kids. I have 2 kids with a bleeding disorder, so we go to hematology oncology clinics. It's we're there with oncology patients, often kids, and it is really tough. Just even going visiting, essentially.
Yeah, my cousin passed away from hemophilia, so my family is no stranger to blood disorders.
Yeah.
But when I didn't work at Children's Hospital, but I did an 8-week rotation there when I was in nursing school, and
Okay.
that was every day in the parking garage before going in. You kind of have to have like a pep talk with yourself because
Yeah.
children, you see them in vulnerable states, and it's extremely unfair. It's unsettling, but it's also remarkable at how powerful children are. Like
Yeah.
they show you strength in
Yeah.
in places where you had no idea humans, especially adults, were capable of. And yeah, man, I'm sorry that you have that going on in your family, but like I know you personally, and I know like there's you're strong, man. Like I'm happy that I wish it would never happen to any kids, but like the
Right.
fact that your kids got you as a father to deal with it, like that warms me because I know you got
Uh,
that caring
that's
umbrella. So
Yeah, that's very sweet. People might not get that from my comedic persona, but I try to be
so different on stage than you are off stage. Like not a lot of comedians are like you. Like that's who they are when they get up there. You are like
yeah.
when I first saw your material, it blew me away because I was like, this dude is doing these jokes. Like,
Yeah, I kind of wish everyone in my audience could get to know me before or after a show, because sometimes I worry that I scare too many people. I just terrify them. But that's sweet of you to say, David. You're so nice. That's the thing that I love about you, is just how kind you are. There are not that many truly kind people, I feel like. And you are one of those. You have a gift. You have a gift for kindness.
I don't know if it's a gift. I just am very. I mean, I want love, so I know it comes from a needy place, you know. But at the end of
Uh-huh.
the day, you can't go into it with like, oh, I hope if I'm nice to them, they're nice to me. You
Yeah.
just gotta treat people decently, and like
Yeah.
it's hard out there, man, and especially like right now with all the we're going through. I just
I know.
try to extend that heart, you know, like, just make sure
Yeah.
people are like look them in the eye, like ask them how they're doing. It's really easy to be nice. Like it's
Yeah.
hard to be present, but it's really easy to be nice.
Man, see, and that's why it's a gift for you. Because when it comes easy, it's a gift. That's the way I feel about it. But I commend you. I commend you for being the way that you are. It is very refreshing. Is that partly why you think you went into nursing? This idea of like giving love, just being nice.
I I hate to see people in pain, man. And
Mm.
like I probably went into nursing with too big of an ego. Like I was gonna cure people and heal them and walk
Oh,
around the
okay.
hospital like
Yeah.
Jesus, you know, like
Sure.
uh,
Sure.
I grew up around a lot of sadness too. Like I said, like that cousin I lost to hemophilia, I
Yeah.
was a child. So I grew up around a lot of sad aunts and uncles,
Yeah.
a lot of grandparents who were holding the burden of losing him. And I think that wired me to be
Hmm.
like, I got to help these people out. I got to bring them a little bit of joy. You know, I would
Hmm.
sing and dance or try to make them laugh, even as a kid. And,
Yeah.
you know, just like, I remember like holding and massaging my grandmother's hands when she had cancer. I don't know what it is, man. I just like,
Hmm.
kids were outside playing and I'd be inside listening to my family talk. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just went with it.
Yeah.
It's weird to reflect.
Yeah.
I don't know why
That's
reflecting on myself
interesting.
is weird, but
Yeah. 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 But that's what we're here to do. We're here to reflect on David Centofanti, figure out what makes you tick, Uh, man, I mean, that's so okay. There are a couple things that you've said that I really want to hit on. The first is I don't want this to come across as a tongue-in-cheek question, like mean-spirited, but why nurse as opposed to doctor? If you're
no,
trying
it's
to
a,
like heal people, I would have thought like, oh, well then, go be a doctor. But nurse, you typically have a lot more interaction with people, patients. You're spending more time with them. So I
that's
just don't
the
know.
number one thing is the
Yeah.
the one-on-one time. You actually get to be with them. But no, it's like, how some kids, their parents raise them like, you're going to be a doctor.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be anything else. My parents were like, you're going to be a nurse. This is your.
Interesting. So they were just focused.
They wanted me to stay with music. When I
Okay.
told my mom I was going into nursing, it was like the opposite. She was like, no, like, stay with the art. Like, don't leave singing. Like, she put all this time into it. And I was just like, it's just like jumping. And because I was just avoiding what I actually wanted to be and do, which was speech and stand-up comedy.
Gotcha.
But no, I had thought about being a doctor because I have a couple. Well, there's a doctor in my fantasy football league, and he was going to nursing school. And when he realized how much of the education was similar, he switched to being a doctor. And he's a well-off doctor, so he was pushing me in that way. He was like, "You should just become a doctor." And I don't know what I was telling myself. Like, nurses are more of a hero. Like, I'll take a pay cut, whatever. But
yeah, interesting. So, and that's the other thing about you've done some jokes about your operatic history. How did you get into that? I mean, had you been doing that young? That
was totally by accident.
The opera?
It shouldn't even have been a thing I found out in my life. I was wanting to do journalism in high school, and the council was like, "You're not smart enough to be in journalism."
Oh my gosh, who are they?
And I stuck at choir. I was horrible. I couldn't hold a pitch for my life. So around junior year, all my friends were in the highest choir, and I was in still the middle choir. So I'd go in the practice rooms and just try to teach myself how to sight read and how to get my pitch. It was the same week Pavarotti died. I was in the practice room and I was like, "Well, I'm a fat Italian. I'm gonna see if I can do what he did." Like, it was like, how young kids watched Michael play basketball and they were like, "I should be able to do that." Like, I hadn't witnessed someone who looked like me do something remarkable until I saw Pavarotti.
Right.
And I just got in the practice room and just listening to him and just mimicking his tonalities and his just everything. I was just mimicking him. So everything I learned with that was just copying Pavarotti. Whatever he does, just mimic it with your tool. And I got lucky and I figured that out, and it became a big part of my life. Yeah.
So what is the opera world like for someone who's kind of breaking into that scene? I would imagine it's music classes or music lessons, singing lessons. And then are you is there an amateur circuit or something that you're going in?
The amateur circuit is very much like the colleges, the great colleges. You have Eastman School of Music. There's a ton of amazing music schools now in America because of the explosion of millennials going into arts. So all these art programs across the country and colleges got a lot of funding. So you can find a lot of great musicians from all over the States. But mostly, you want to go east. New York is a lot of the people function and get into the main circuit.
Got it. So how far into that world did you go?
I didn't get too far into it. I did a couple chorus performances at Carnegie Hall for Eric Whitacre opera, but it wasn't a extremely long performance or anything notable.
Sure.
I kind of threw in the towel on that one because I was just not into learning 400-year-old German music and Italian arias. I got a little. I lost the love, so I got very lazy with it.
Got it. Yeah. Kind of a neat thing you found out about yourself, but not a true passion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair. That's fair. Okay. So then we kind of fast forward to you with your grandpa at this almost crisis moment. You feel like for your future of well, I can keep doing this, or I could do what I feel like is really calling me, which is stand up. So what was your first open mic experience? Where did you go? What happened?
You know how you're supposed to go check it out? Go everyone gives the advice to new people, go look at an open mic, go
Yeah.
just watch.
Yeah, just go see. Right.
And you'll know you can do it.
Right.
I invited all my friends from high school, all the people who doubted me originally, who were like,
"Oh no."
I invited them, and it was in this bar in Rochester, Michigan.
Okay.
Noisy as all get out, and just horrible. I couldn't remember my joke setups, so I'm just stumbling and trying to find the words. And the dude who was hosting comes up on stage with me. He's like this big, he's like double my size, this big black guy. He just puts his arm around. He's just like, breathe. And I was just like, all my friends have their heads down in the booth in the back. It was the worst. So, and a lot of them haven't seen like me perform since then. So I think they're just all like, yeah, David's out in LA throwing away his life, which is kind of true. But
well,
to an extent, it was not. Oh, I should not have invited people, man.
Yeah, that's a ballsy move, inviting a whole bunch of people. I mean, especially high school friends, man. That's crazy confident. That's amazing. So
that was when I was like 20, and I didn't do it again for 5 years after that because it was
so devastating. Holy smokes! So how much time did they give you up on stage at that first open mic?
It was probably like 3 minutes, and I didn't even probably get 60 seconds into it.
Is that right? You were just like,
it was
yeah.
I couldn't give a word. I was just standing up there holding a mic.
Oh man, that's so rough. Yeah, that stage fright. Was it stage fright that hit you? Was it like all of these people have like, did the crowd affect, like the people you brought, did they affect you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So you kind of dug yourself a little pit.
That's good because I don't know. It's like I wouldn't want it any other way. I like that that failure. I don't know. Failure's always fueled me.
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah.
All right, well, next time they see me, it's gonna be better than that.
Right. I was just talking to, I'm in Vegas right now with a comedy competition, which are always like, they're good for networking, but I don't feel like they're a really great measure of how funny you are. They find someone that they want to market, which is great, but it's not necessarily like who's the funniest here kind of competition, you know? But I was talking to somebody else who, there was one of these shows last night that it was after the competition, kind of a fun show for the people who'd already performed to kind of let off some steam. The crowd was small. It's COVID spaced out, but even that, it was still small. And man, the show got off the rails. And I was talking to some of the people afterward, and all of them are like, it's fine to bomb, but like you want to go up again and in front of the same people and be like, I can prove to you that I'm funny. I will do this. I want to do it again. I think we have to have a little bit of failure in our lives to really learn what's going on,
That failure, I don't know about you, but after a bomb, I need to get back up on stage and do well.
Yeah. Yes.
Like it's like a drug, It's like you get a bad batch, and you're like, I gotta get good stuff before
I can only imagine what you're talking about and relate to it in a sympathetic level.
When you go up into the Eucharist is like grape juice and not actually wine. It's like,
I mean, again, I have to. We use water. We use water for our sacrament. So,
really? That's actually intelligent. That makes a lot of sense.
I think so.
Am I going to become a Mormon after
this? You should. That's the whole goal with this podcast. Yeah, exactly.
So have you performed at all in Vegas yet?
No, I have performed in Vegas before. It was in connection with this same competition. They did satellites. So I was here in February, did a show. It went fine. I did not advance. It was not one of my best performances. So I'm excited to kind of be back in front of what I will pretend is the exact same crowd to prove to them that I can be funnier than I was before. But I perform on Friday. So I'm up. We're recording this Thursday, so I'm up tomorrow. But anyhow, yeah, okay. So I want to ask you, like, how have you felt about your comedic voice? Like, do you feel like you've found it yet? You've been in it for, 3-ish years now. Um, do you feel like you're getting there, or where are you on your kind of comedic persona journey?
I feel like I finally found the roots of my voice pre-COVID. I was
Oh,
very
yeah.
fortunate. Like January and February were really good months for my writing and like my material communication to people.
Yeah.
Uh, I went back and watched a lot of my videos before that, and it was like just like the self-deprecating jokes work, the fat
Sure.
jokes work, the
Sure.
opera jokes work, but all of them are like really heavy crutches where it's like, yeah, they're gonna work because they're tried and true to something that is tried and true. Like, yeah, I'm fat. Yeah, I can sing opera. So
Right.
congrats, you found those jokes. But I wasn't ever like I would never watch my videos or my tapes and laugh at or not even laugh, but like feel like, oh, this is true comedy. This is I
Mm.
found it. And finally being like more vulnerable and
Mm-hmm.
being more open and not being afraid to share parts of myself instead of leaning on like a fat joke that tears me down. I build myself up and use just my existence to get the humor because it's like I've had a very hilarious life in terms of like the pain I've experienced, and it's like
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate that I'm still here and get to talk about it. So to go up there and just do like fat jokes or talk about like farts or just like stuff that's so shallow, it was
Yeah.
nice to get past that because I spent a lot of time on stage talking about really dark, sad stuff. And not that it's a detriment, but I definitely think it's going to be a hurdle to overcome because a lot of people who have seen me perform, their perception of me is not a good one. It's not a positive one. It's like, oh, here's
Mm.
David. He's probably going to talk about suicide. And it's like, yeah, those jokes maybe would hit once in a while, but that's not who I am fully. It's just
Right.
something talked about on stage because it was something I was dealing with. And that's a whole other
Right.
issue of
Right.
separating what you're working through to like what you actually want to convey to people. And I feel like I'm very lucky to have 3.5, 4 years in, kind of locked in on what
Yeah.
I want to share with the world.
Yeah. So as far as like advice for other people that are around our stage, kind of still figuring that out, what advice do you give them?
Trust your history.
Mm.
Like those moments where like you were pushed down or kicked around or like life kind of just kept like when you're standing up and you just fall back down, like all those moments, like share those. Don't try to be funny. Just
Mm-hmm.
share yourself. And then you'll actually find out if you're actually truly like someone that like the human species like wants to look at on stage and share themselves. Like we're very tribalistic, and it's like
Yeah.
the dude that wasn't funny probably wasn't allowed to speak in the cave at night, around the fire, and
Uh-huh.
hopefully he learned that role. I mean, maybe his
Yeah.
role was being a hunter,
Sure.
but the dude who like got the cave to laugh and warm themselves up, like
Yeah.
that was a learned trait that kept him surviving. So to find that, you gotta like fully share yourself, and if
Yeah.
you share yourself, you'll know what's true. It took me a long time to find that though. So if you can like trust like your true self and share your true self, you'll get there a lot faster.
Yeah. So why, I guess, did you feel like you were avoiding your true self, or was it more I want to be funny in a different way, or what motivated kind of your comedic choices up until you decided I need to be this, or I want to be this?
It's interesting because I guess you kind of do that. Maybe it's not consciously, but I like a lot of the times I would feel like I was just throwing stuff out there to get the laugh.
Yeah.
Instead of this is the comedy of me.
Yeah, right. This is what
So
I prepared for you.
A little bit of both.
Yeah. And do you do most of your writing off stage, or do you do some both on and off?
Off stage. Yeah.
Off stage.
I'll definitely come up with the materials, and I got notebooks all over my room that are just filled with probably just senseless hours of jokes, but how many of them actually will get tried on stage is another thing.
Right, sure.
I don't write on stage. I try to come fully prepared, and then luckily there'll be a synapse that fires, and I'll think of something spontaneously on stage.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, that spontaneous fire always gets laughs.
Right.
Because of the human element, I think the audience listening can sense that it was also spontaneous. So they enjoy that. They also found that with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, I operate very similarly. And I think it's interesting that as stand-ups, we're trying to, I don't know, I guess in my process, or this process that we both tend to follow, is the spontaneity that we find on stage, getting a laugh, is what we try to create unspontaneously in the future to appear spontaneous every time. Right? Which is
so hard to recreate.
Yeah.
It's just like Chase of the Dragon. It's just how I should use all these references for you. But no, it's that's the beauty though of this art form. Like, it's not just saying words, it's trying to perfect that connection, tonality, and spontaneity.
So there's another thing I want to come back to, and you kind of talked about this with some of the pain, that you've endured in your life. The lack of support system. Most people, I think, who are even somewhat into stand-up would believe that the lack of support system, the painful history, that those are necessary for a stand-up. And lack of support, I don't mean like you had no family with you. I just mean people that were like not encouraging you to be a stand-up. That's almost a prerequisite to be a stand-up. Right? So
I think in all walks you need a
so
right?
Yeah. Has your support system changed? Do you feel like you've, I mean, I don't know if there's anyone from your family that has seen you perform that like has changed their opinion on it, or how's that evolved for you over these last few years?
Well, like with the music, everyone supported me to move out to LA, even though I probably wasn't ready comedically to hit the LA circuit. Probably could have done some time in the Michigan circuit, but I got mad support to work hard and put stuff out from my mother, my brother. Like, they're all just trying to push me to like work harder at this and like get my stuff out there, and not like I'm very lucky in that regards. But in terms of,
that's great.
I think, you know how you said it's like a prerequisite for being a good comedian is like having that doubt. Yes, to an extent, but like if you got people that are like doubting you on wanting to do something that like is gonna make you happy, it's like, stop listening to those people. Just, you gotta do what makes you happy, even if you fail at it, because it's like you can always return to whatever you do.
Yeah, that's true. I do have this struggle within myself, seeing how competitive the LA market is, just how many people want to do stand-up, where I think it might be better if some of them did listen, though, because then they wouldn't clog up the pipeline, just so selfishly. But, we all evolve, we all change, we all get better. So
there was a point in my early years where I was clogging up the pipeline for some of these people that are way better than me at stand-up, but you kind of just have to trust that you're going to break free and get flushed.
I think, I mean, honestly, the more I've thought about it, the more it's like, I do believe in the meritocracy aspect of stand-up, that those who are funny do get noticed, and they do kind of rise in the ranks to where they should be, So I want to talk about now religion, because I mean, just the amount of pain that you have alluded to in your life, leading you to stand up. How has that affected your relationship, if at all, with a God?
Heavily.
Heavily? Yeah.
It's sometimes like I'm past this, but there was a point in my life where I was like, "Am I straight up in the Book of Job? Like, is this everything a test? Is everything just testing me to have faith in this universal being?"
Yeah.
And once I got past that, that was a good step for my brain, because looking at God as a thing that was trying to test me in terms of him, like his, or like the faith in it. Instead, it was like obstacles to grow. Like, these things that are happening are to help you grow. It's not about you having more faith in it. It's about you having more faith in yourself that you can overcome.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to get to it. I've had a lot of different layers of what I view God as, and what. But oh man, it's religion has always been a very it's like a roller coaster, man, in my life.
Yeah.
Moved all over, but I've always had an open communication with whatever it may be.
Sure. I mean, I think that's So I mean, so beautifully put. How, I guess, what understanding of God did you have when you were a kid? Like, were you going to church? What kind of church were you going to? Or were your parents just both kind of spiritual, religious, teaching you kind of what they had been brought up with?
So my mother's mother, as far as we know, she was Jewish, and during the Holocaust, they got their papers switched so they could protect themselves before they escaped to Czechoslovakia. And they got my great-grandfather, who I named after David, out of the concentration camp. But when she came to America, she refused to have any religion in her life. So when my mother was a child, my mom wanted to go to church, and I believe she went to a Lutheran church. My father was Catholic, firstborn of the Italian family in America. He was conceived in Italy, and they got over here so he could be a U.S. citizen.
Wow.
And when my parents divorced, like, one of my dad's, he wanted my mom to raise us Catholic. So she agreed. So she found a very progressive Catholic church that was in near our hometown. And I would go to mass to my dad's Catholic church on the other side of town, which was a way more conservative Catholic church. And then like the holidays and catechism and stuff, I would do at the church by my mom's place. And that's where. So I was raised Catholic, confirmed, all that, communion. My confirmed name is Joseph. My priest, Father Jerry, gave me the name Joseph because of basically what the story of Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat is based off of.
Yeah, beautiful.
Is that whole story, and he said that's your energy. And he's like, and that's why I give you this name. And it was really cool to have like a priest that totally saw me. Like, he saw me as like the performer, the eccentric, like, and he didn't inhibit that or anything. Like, so that was really, like, I was fortunate to have that happen.
Yeah. But I mean, also, it's interesting to me, even in just our conversation here, that comparison, because from my understanding of that story, a huge aspect of that story is Joseph's ability to forgive and be kind to his brothers, who totally screw him over in the beginning. And it feels like this priest already knew this about you, that you were going to be a kind loving, forgiving individual. I find that fascinating.
Like I said, I got very lucky to have Father Jerry. He was one of a kind. He would fly to Vermont. This was back in the day when gay marriage was still illegal across the states, and he would marry Catholics.
No kidding.
He would marry so they could still be Catholics, because there was a lot of gay community at that time that they were pushed out of the church.
Yeah.
And he was one of the few priests that was like, why are we pushing people out instead of accepting them? So that was at a time too. When you're a teenager, you're like, why are people not allowed to just love whoever they want? And then you have your leader of your church being like, oh, we're going to go against the archdiocese a little bit here. I appreciate that, because when you go into a religion, especially one as strict as Catholicism, you got to be able to have that bend or ability to question. And he gave that to us, which I don't think when I talk to a lot of Catholics that are my age now, it bums me out, because they look back at their past, or at least the religion that raised them, a lot differently than I do.
Yeah. A lot more closed, a lot more punitive. Interesting. So do you still identify as Catholic, or has your religious identity changed?
Yeah, I wouldn't label myself as a Catholic anymore. It's really hard to go to Mass and listen to these priests, and I just I can't get all the lady stuff and the rote. Everyone's do the same thing every week.
Yeah,
it drives me crazy. I like variety.
Okay, I see. So you need some improv in your church service.
Well, I think religion is questions. I love asking questions.
Sure.
I so often, I guess I would more label myself as a Gnostic, probably.
Okay.
Question the reality of our universe more than accepting that this is just like the one tried and true.
Interesting.
That is
so,
my college professor labeled himself as a non-secular humanist, and I always like the wording of that.
Yeah. So how would you identify yourself now then religiously? Are you, I guess, agnostic is what you said. So what led you to agnostic from this pretty religious upbringing?
I would say probably my father used to say this one saying. He would say, "I am not knowing." He would say that specific phrasing. Like if he didn't have the answer to something, or if we were talking about like a big subject, his response would always be, "I am not knowing." And I was kind of like stuck in the back of my head, where it's like, what the hell does that mean? And then when I got older and I learned about all the other religions and how important it was to educate yourself, I was like, oh, the "I am not knowing" is a driving force to keep educating yourself, keep asking questions. And I like to tell myself that there will never be an answer. And that's comforting. Is that, at least for me in my brain, I feel like if you lock down into one absolute truth, isn't that a little bit of madness? Isn't that a little bit of craziness? Like, if it brings you peace, that's great.
Yeah.
But for me, one solid answer has never brought me peace. So
Interesting.
I like the whole questioning aspect of religion. Is asking and finding what fits your puzzle.
Yeah. Interesting. So do you believe in an afterlife or no?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So what kind of afterlife is there for a David Centofanti? What does that mean for you?
I think it's not like a permanent place.
Okay.
I think it's a beautiful in between, and you kind of get a choice on how long you want to stay there. I don't think it's easy to stay in the afterlife, especially if you don't know yourself before you pass away. I think the afterlife is less like, you know how they say you go there to be judged. I think go there to match up with who you really are with what you achieved and learned about yourself. And if you know yourself better when you return, I know this is like, it's a lot like the Hindu belief of reincarnation.
Yeah.
Is to believe when you die, your soul fragments, or at least there's a split. But if you truly like know yourself and understand your soul and what its purpose is, and you've done everything you can to bring love to yourself and your family and your friends and those communities that surround you, like I think you fragment less. And when you return, when you're reborn, if you are reborn, I don't know if any of this is true, bring me peace at night. You come back as a stronger being. So I think at the beginning of everything, there was one entity. It got bored and accidentally created another.
Okay.
And because it doubted itself, it kept fragmenting into all of this.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is that we are all one in it, and it is all one in us. But because we're so far fragmented from the beginning, it sometimes feels like we're lost or not understanding where we are. And I think in the afterlife, what you slide into is the consciousness of that moment, that it remembering itself. And I don't think it's a comfortable place as much as, it is comfortable, but it's challenging. I feel like it's overwhelming. And I think that's why there is so much life on earth, is that the afterlife is truly a plane you have to be ready for. It's going to be interesting to learn yourself, because I think you get it all right at the end.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I like that. I can get behind some of that. There's a lot of, I think, similarities in what you're talking about with my faith, in the sense that the afterlife, this portion of the afterlife you're talking about, kind of before judgment, is I think a big part of our own spiritual self-discovery and coming to terms with where we are going to be happiest in the true afterlife, in the heaven, or in the existence beyond or after judgment. Interesting. All right. Well, I like that. That's pretty comforting, I think. Is the being that you kind of believe in, all of us coming from, is that a perfect being?
I believe for a moment it was.
And then the accident.
Well, I don't know
no.
if it's rooted in doubt or not understanding itself, or what even birthed the beginning of it all. But I believe at one point we're born perfect. But babies, we're untouched by the material world. A lot of people want to say you're born as a sinner, and you have to work in life to prove or solve that sin.
Well, especially this idea. Yeah, I mean, so you were raised with this original sin idea, correct? And so for people who don't quite understand what that is, can you explain what is this idea of original sin?
So it goes all the way back to Eden. It's saying so we're at the beginning of life. You got a man and a woman, Adam and Eve, and they eat the fruit from the tree, and God gave them everything that they could ever need inside of this beautiful paradise, and they went against it and his word, and because of that, we're damned to live this burdensome life on this planet without Eden. But then he gives us his son and sacrifices his son in the name of that sin, freeing us all from that original sin. So it's and there's layers to it too, because Adam and Eve's son then carries that sin to an extra level when they're living out of Eden by killing his brother Abel. So there's like that's more real in terms of the original sin than like getting all the knowledge from the tree of life to me.
Yeah. So my understanding of Catholicism's teachings on kind of original sin is that it's also tied to this idea that Adam and Eve, the taking of the fruit was more of a euphemism for them having sex. Is that true or is that false?
We never discussed. I don't remember that.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, for us it was always an actual substance that they took.
That they ate or something. Got
and
it.
it was always depicted in our like books as an apple.
Right.
I've grown up, it's changed. Like my brother, I think at one point said to me, "It's a pomegranate." And like now we got like people going on their podcast and being like, "No, it's the Anita muscara mushroom."
Right. It's shrooms or it's weed or who knows what it was they took.
I don't think it's any of those things. I think it's just parents not wanting their kids to disobey them.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Do what I say. I've been here longer than you.
Right. I don't quite understand exactly I do believe the fruit is something symbolic, but I don't know what the symbol it is representing is, if that makes sense.
Maybe it is an apple, and maybe it's just nutrients that it represents.
I mean,
maybe humans need more vitamin C, and that's
right.
all it is. It's like, yo,
man,
better.
How crazy would that be if it were that simple?
And healthier, it can treat your body better.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. Yeah, I agree. I think kids are born, I guess the way I would phrase it is kids are born pure. Because there are some kids that have, like physical defects or something that I guess arguably, okay, they're not perfect. But I think what you're really saying, like we agree, right, that they are pure in the sense that they are holy, they are wonderful. It's not an unholy thing to be brought into this world.
So as a man of faith, like, can I ask, like, did your faith ever waver when your children were born or when you found out that there was going to be hurdles in their care?
No, my faith, certainly not with childbirth. All three of our kids, like the birthing experience is a miraculous one, I think.
We were 4 live childbirths, and it was the coolest. I mean, dude, life coming into the world, man.
Yeah, it is crazy. And the ability that women have to bring that life into this world is also a miracle. So my faith was never really shaken, even though my kids have, 2 of them have this bleeding disorder. Luckily for us, it is not that serious of a bleeding disorder. At least, I guess the way I'll phrase it is they don't have a very serious case of the bleeding disorder. So we've been very fortunate that way. But yeah, no, I've never, I mean, even just in kind of day-to-day living, my faith has not really been, I guess, shaken. Like I've never gotten to a place where I've questioned my faith. I certainly question myself. I question my standing with God, but I've never questioned whether or not what I believe is real, if that makes sense.
So you have a very strong foundation within you.
Yeah, and I really do feel like that is one of my gifts. It is just something that I've not dealt with yet. I may very well face that in the future. I just have not faced it yet. I've talked to a lot of friends from college and high school who absolutely have faced those kinds of questions. Yeah.
You said you question your standing with God. So does that open communication with your God? What is that like?
Yeah, let's go to this segment. What's the deal? What's the deal with Mormons for David Centofanti?
What's the deal with Mormons?
Yeah, there you go. What's the deal with Mormons? So are you asking like how does prayer work for us?
Well, like, is it just communication? Like, because for me, it's just we used to sit and cross our hands and kneel, and now for me, like if you saw it, I feel like it would probably look a little bit like insanity
Uh-huh.
because it's brief moments throughout the day where
Yeah.
I'll look. It's kind of like JD and Scrubs. I'll look up to the right and be like, "So this is what."
Is this for real? Yeah. Uh, I'll say this. In my faith, there is kind of a taught form. We have the classic fold your arms, bow your head, close your eyes. So anytime we pray in meetings, that's the way we'll do it. But we're also taught to, carry a prayer in your heart. You should always be talking, conversing, thinking about, kind of making decisions with God in mind, which can be taken to the absurd. It's not like you have to go to the grocery store and be like, oh, do I want Kroger's beans or do I want, Nature's Select? And I don't think God cares about that. So I think it's more of, yeah, I hope not. He might have a favorite brand. I don't know. But I think the important thing is these, the life-changing decisions, like, do I want to keep working as a nurse or do I want to go into stand-up? Like for me, do I want to keep working as a lawyer? Do I want to get into stand-up? Those are questions that certainly, we take to Heavenly Father. We're encouraged to kind of come to a decision on our own and then essentially ask for, here's what I'm doing. Tell me if this is wrong. Show me if this is wrong. But I'm
Do
going
you
to
pray
keep,
out loud like that, or do you pray internal?
both. We'll do both. There have been many times when I've been alone and prayed vocally, and more often than not, if I'm alone, I'm just gonna silently pray. But yeah, we'll pray in families. My wife and I will say prayers together. My kids and my wife and I will all say prayers together, and then we're encouraged to have personal prayer too. So the personal stuff tends to be more interior. If you want to think about it as like a meditation, sure. But it's focused, and the form of it is, we address our Heavenly Father, say, Dear Heavenly Father, then we say what we're going to say, and then we close in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
So
But we don't have very many written, like, memorized prayers in Mormonism.
So your Jesus was crucified too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we believe in the same Christ, the same Jesus that was crucified, resurrected. Yeah.
How much do you guys concentrate on that in your teachings? The crucifixion.
I'd say 98%.
Okay, so it is a big part of it all.
Oh yeah, huge. The full name.
That's probably my biggest thing I did not like with Catholicism as I got older, is that I thought we were sort of glorifying his last moments instead of concentrating on his living. It was all about.
Interesting.
I get carrying the cross, and it's like, what it translates to in our. But I just thought, like, do we have to have this visual of him bleeding?
Right.
Like, why can't our structures or like our statues of him be like washing the feet?
Yeah, sure.
Why is that not our statue we worship? Why do we worship his death?
Right. Well, and then you deal with the Protestants who have the empty cross, to symbolize his resurrection.
What's the big symbol? Like, what's at the altar in Mormon churches? Or what is it, a church still?
Yeah. So we'll go, in pre-COVID times, we would go to a building, an actual church building. There is none, actually. There's no empty cross. There's no symbols of Christ on the cross. It's a pretty blank slate as far as the pulpit and the rostrum go.
Mormons are more like Muslims.
Sure. Yeah.
No imagery, I think, is important.
Right. Imagery is important. Yeah, we just don't have it.
Catholicism is they just like show you all this negative imagery. And it's like, how are you supposed to develop your own perception of what you read?
Yeah, well, and there's also been a very evolved relationship between man and God. A lot of the early Catholic churches were made to be incredibly beautiful, incredibly big, and ornate, to kind of show here's a distance between you and the holy, right? Um, and Mormonism, as far as when it was organized in America in 1830, came in at a time of Protestant, revolution, essentially, right? A revitalization of the closeness of man and God. So our churches are pretty simple. Our temples are fancier, but the churches are pretty simple. Yeah. We have paintings, throughout the building, but none that are like gory. Catholic churches get kind of gory, and we don't have many of those. We'll have one. There's typically a painting of Christ either in the garden suffering or on the cross, because that is that's a big part of why we worship Jesus Christ. Most of the paintings, though, are of him performing miracles, being with the apostles, visiting Mary outside of his tomb after being resurrected. That's most of our paintings in the church.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, so we try to focus on
such a close relationship with Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the full name of our church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Mormonism is a nickname given to us because of the Book of Mormon that over the years we've tried to kind of rebrand as we're okay with. And then every so often our prophet will be like, hey, we need to remind the world we are Christian, because they don't know that with Mormon as the name.
So is there a living prophet right now?
Yes, there is. Russell M. Nelson is his name.
And how did he come to be a living prophet?
So we have what we believe is the same organization that Christ established in the New Testament. So we have a first presidency similar to Peter, James, and John, and then we have 12 apostles. And then we also believe we have quorums of the 70, which are essentially traveling missionaries full-time until they retire, essentially until they die or they're called to a different calling in the church, that go around teaching about Christ. The missionaries that most people hear about with my faith are the 2-year missionaries, the young men, the young women who go out, and that's a temporary calling. It's a calling for 2 years. But yeah, so Russell M. Nelson, Henry B. Eyring, and Dallin A. Chokes are our 3 Peter, James, and John today. The way they become apostles is they're called. It's a calling that comes from the kind of top down. So when Joseph Smith organized the church in 1830, he was elected prophet. I mean, he was essentially he was really called to be a prophet by God. And then as the church grew, he called 12 apostles who then confirmed him as prophet. And that's the way that it's done now. So those callings have kind of been handed down, to other individuals within the faith.
Is it by blood or by who is exemplified?
No, it's by calling. I mean, we believe it's by revelation. A lot of people would just, outside of the faith, would say, well, it's just who they know and who they like, and maybe so. But we believe that there's revelation that goes into that. So it is a calling, right?
What do you mean by revelation?
Communication with God. So essentially that God still runs the church today, right? So really we believe Christ is at the head of the church, and that he with God are calling individuals to lead us in this life on earth.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the way that that's done, we believe, is through the men who lead the church now. So if or when one of the apostles, or if the president, typically what happens is the president or the prophet of the church passes away, the first presidency is dissolved. The 14 who are left meet together. They then call by revelation a new prophet, essentially meaning, Christ is calling a new prophet to lead his church, that is then approved of by this group of 14. And that prophet then chooses his 2 counselors to make the first presidency. And that leaves one opening in the Quorum of the 12. And the Quorum of the 12 meet together with the first presidency, and the prophet calls a new member to the Quorum of the 12, who's then confirmed by that group of 14. And then every 6 months we meet as a church, and every year we meet as a church over, essentially over social media now, like YouTube or streaming services, to meet together worldwide. And during one of those meetings, it's usually in October. There's a weekend in October, first weekend in October, first weekend in April, where we meet together and kind of like a little mini conference. We call it General Conference. I only said mini conference because in the academic world, a conference is like a week, and we take 2 days. And one of those meetings in October is to confirm as a church we sustain those who have been called.
So you can get essentially, like, you can be a prophet, but then it can go away?
Typically, when you're called as a Quorum of the 12 or the first presidency, you're in those callings until you die.
Okay.
Yeah. Or are deemed, like you're just, if you suffer from severe dementia, you're not going to continue as a prophet. You'll be replaced, but essentially it's to death. Have
you ever felt like the calling or God talking to you in that sense?
I'll say yes and no. My faith believes very strongly in personal revelation, personal contact with God. But I've never felt any sort of like, you should give this direction to your whole church. No, I've never felt that. So we believe that our prophet has essentially the authority to hear and receive revelation for the whole church. And that, I guess there might be some things that, like, I would think, hey, it might be interesting if our church tried this. I don't count that really as revelation that the whole church needs to hear. Because that's not really my role. So, but I definitely feel, God's direction in my life. I feel, I don't know that I can't say I've ever heard his voice, but I have definitely felt his direction, which we believe comes through the Holy Spirit.
So historically, how many, so it's been since 1830.
Yeah.
Like, how, in the modern day and age, like, with so many people leaning towards science and moving forward, and a lot of people stepping away from believing in these, like, religious institutions, like, how have you found your grounding with your community and your family, like, with all this new, like, all this new information that I don't think it challenges religion as much as it's almost like religions were scientific without the understanding they were scientific. And that's just my belief. But how have you found it? Like, I mean, it's wild. You're part of one of the youngest and largest and youngest put together. Like,
right. I think, and the true, I guess, to be fair to your characterization, the way that I really think about my faith is it started with Adam and Eve. I feel like everybody in the Bible that followed God and Jesus Christ, like, they were all Mormon, like they, right. So we we recognize that Judaism is really where this faith started, right? We believe that the New Testament, Christ is so important because of his atonement and, solidifying kind of this plan that God has for us. But the other thing Christ did was shift the focus from these more Jewish laws, right, the Mosaic law, to one of, the higher law that's presented in the New Testament with Christianity. So I think Mormonism is more of a continuation or a merger of some of these, I suppose, other kind of Christian faiths and Judaism. I think Mormonism is it's the best. It's the best one. It's the best of everything.
It makes sense to rein it all in, because with all like Christianity has so many different splits.
Yeah.
Like, I give their Islam, their big split, it's a big one. But you got to give them credit where credit is due, is they didn't let it get completely out of control like Christianity did. There's just so many different ways to believe in the same thing.
Yeah.
And yet they almost look like, I grew up with like Lutherans and Protestants on my bus. And there was this weird like, oh, you're not Protestant, you're Catholic. It's like, yo, we all worship in the same Christ.
Yeah. Very odd. I agree wholeheartedly. So as far as your other, I think, question, as how do we make sense of science? I agree with you to an extent that religion was kind of the first science, without being formalized as a science. I also don't think that religion and science are in conflict. The way I was raised is, evolution was for sure a thing. God used evolution to create Adam and Eve. That's how Adam and Eve were created. So I don't ascribe to a literal translation of the Bible. I don't think the earth has been around for only 7,000 years or 9,000 years or whatever it is at this point.
Could you imagine getting to this point of perfection as a species in only 7,000 years?
I mean,
maybe. We've evolved crazy in my lifetime. Like, I was born without this, like the internet. Like, I'm looking at your face and you're 100 miles away.
Right, which is crazy. And but I think science and religion try to explain the same coin. We're just looking at it kind of from two different sides.
Okay. So it's almost like religion is the Big Bang, and science is, this is the formula to make the Big Bang happen.
Right.
We created in a chemistry lab almost. Like, there's a guy in Earth's using carbon.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as kind of the more well-known aspects of my faith, our heaven, for those of us who achieve heaven, or our version of exaltation, we're going to be creating planets. I think we're going to need to know some science in order to know how to do that.
Wait, say that again. So you think?
So Mormon heaven, right? Man and woman together forever in eternity. That is kind of that is the highest level of Mormon heaven, right? That's the best of the best. You're married with your spouse and you both exist forever.
Just centuries and centuries of
forever
getting to be with your cosmic lover.
Right. And you are creating and recreating what God has created for us. So we believe in God and Heavenly Mother have created spiritual kids, and then they created an earth where they needed to put us so that we could become just like them. So that's our cycle.
So in the afterlife, you create another world using...
You got it, baby.
That's wild. So this is like, life is just reading the manual and getting the...
That's it. Yeah, that's it. We're here to figure out ourselves, how to be better people, and then be a model and example for those who will then follow.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Because then, that would make... Well, that... oh, that's so fascinating, because then like whoever is our God that created us, like you and I are from it, like together.
Right.
When we
So we're
die,
all a family.
go to our own universe, we're going to be creating a whole other
Yep. Whole
world
other thing. Right.
based. So, dude,
So people talk about, scientists say the universe is expanding all of the time. It's expanding very quickly. And for me, it's like, of course it is, because others are creating it. That's why it's expanding.
I mean, it makes so much sense to me, because I mean, in my head, I'm always telling myself that like the thoughts I have are, you have to have positive thoughts to your body and communicate positive thoughts to your body, because the inside of you, like the cells that are making sure things function, I almost look at them as little universes.
Sure.
And
Yeah. I mean, that's the Men in Black, right?
Send
Yeah.
love to my heart and my lungs and my hips and my knees, and just keep flowing positive universes through my blood.
Right.
But when
interesting.
you die, like that, the fact that it could expand outward, and like, I really, that imagery in my head right now.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Huh.
So
there you go.
Is Earth are we the first cell in this universe, or are we the last cell, or are we inside of a womb?
I mean, I don't know. Our belief is that we are somewhere, right? It's somewhere in the course of time. The question is, how deep do the turtles go, right? When was the true beginning? So if Earth was not the true beginning, which I don't know that it was, when was the true beginning? How many gods have come before our God, essentially? Yeah. And this is, and then
early in our stages of understanding.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
during the next plateau of,
how many times has the Matrix been reset, right? All of these questions.
So I heard in a podcast the line that technology is our evolutionary descendant. And that really like gave me chills. I think that like, because everything we're talking about is on the basis that you leave this plane. And that's why it makes sense that it would be like a manual that you like learn as much as you can from, to help build your next existence or whatever you get to be God of, in that sense. But
yeah,
it's like to think that like one day there'll be, maybe not, but a silicone being that has consciousness that doesn't die as long as it's upgraded and continues to progress. Like, it's truly fascinating to think that if we're given this like permanence that we die, but we're guaranteed that, and we're living in the moment where we're figuring out how to, or maybe not even figuring it out, but we're at least trying to figure out, but can we install consciousness in a material that doesn't decay because of the inevitable entropy of like life that is on Earth.
Right.
Oh,
interesting. Yeah,
that's so cool. I had no idea that. So is there a hell in Mormonism?
There is. Yeah, there is. We talk about hell kind of colloquially, and then so immediately after we die, we believe that we go into kind of one of two states of being. We're either in a more a happier state of being, which we call spirit paradise, or we go to a less happy state of being, which is a spirit prison. Typically, that's separated by baptism, which is why we do baptisms for the dead in our temples, which is a living ordinance, but in proxy for someone who's already passed away. Giving them the choice to accept that ordinance, moving their state of being from a prison to a paradise.
So that right there, can I? So I don't know. You're the clean cut guy, and I've done DMT. Okay. And there was one DMT trip I had that I would literally label it as a soul prison.
Interesting.
Where there was this conscious like communication happening with myself, and a lot of it was my living doubts, and they were consuming me. Where it literally, like when I was accepting of it, whatever it is, the explosion, that part of the brain, it felt like a beautiful paradise. It was flowing colors, as far as I can see, several different dimensions. But right when I started to question it, like, oh, how long am I going to be here? Or am I worthy? Or I'm comparing it to someone else's DMT trip. When I immediately had those conscious negative thoughts, it all disfragmented. All the shapes that were symmetrical became non-symmetrical, and all the colors washed away. And it felt like a purgatory or like a soul prison, where it was like I wasn't comfortably accepting it, and not accepting myself, and therefore it put me into this place that wasn't. I don't want to label it negative, but it was lack of energy. It was a lack of like, well, if you're not going to accept me, I'm not going to accept you.
Oh, that's so interesting. So let's see. I'm trying to remember now what your question was. So we started talking about spirit paradise, spirit prison.
Hell.
Hell. Yeah. So sometimes we'll talk about hell in this idea of spirit prison, okay, where you're essentially trapped from progressing or damned because you have not yet been baptized, either while you were alive or after you've died, right? The other way we talk about hell, kind of the more traditional, hell, terrible place forever, is something we refer to as outer darkness, which is, if you were to make these geographic areas, outer darkness, we believe is small. They're not going to be, or population density, population, small population compared to the rest of Heavenly Father's and Heavenly Mother's children.
Are you there
and you're there for eternity. Yes. And the only way you really get there were two ways. One, in my faith, there was a premortal existence where we lived with Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother, and they explained to us, here's everything that's going to happen. Okay. You're going to go to earth and you're going to make mistakes, and we're going to send Jesus down, a savior down, and he's going to do X, Y, and Z. And you can then use him to repent and come back to us. Okay. So that's our plan, right? We believe that there was a third of all of Heavenly Father's and Heavenly Mother's children who said that plan sucks and we're not doing it, and we're going to follow Lucifer. Lucifer presents this plan, this idea of saying, hey, we're going to make everybody go down. We're going to make everybody make the right choices. That way everybody can come back to live with Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother. So because he chose not to follow the plan presented by Heavenly Father and tried to get others to deny that plan, he's going to outer darkness. Those who followed him before this life, because they had all the perfect information and still chose not to follow Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother's plan, they're going to outer darkness with him. Those of us who are in this life, the only way we really get there is if we have a perfect knowledge of Jesus Christ and his atonement and the reality of it. We deny it and we try to get other people to deny it. Then we might end up going to outer darkness. Yeah, which is not a very great place.
No, I said it doesn't sound great because it doesn't sound like you get to create your own world there.
No, you're not going to be creating your own world there. No.
Lucifer
no.
There?
And Lucifer is there.
To talk to the other Dan, at least?
I think there's, and this is just me, we don't know that much as a faith, like as faithful teachings, our gospel or our scripture doesn't talk hardly at all about outer darkness, other than the weeping, the wailing, the gnashing of teeth, right? It's just a not good place. We know a lot more about what we call the celestial kingdom, this highest area of heaven, than we do about really any other place. So clearly, we take that as that's our goal. That's where we want to be. Therefore, we know the most about it.
So is all the information about heaven from Joseph, or is it from people going and coming back, like near-death experiences?
Oh, no. So I don't think we have much as far as confirming, we don't put stock necessarily in near-death experiences as true spiritual experiences, not to discredit them or discount them. We don't have those kinds of experiences in our
you guys should get on it, because that near-death experiences have made Christianity a ton of money.
I mean, they certainly have. They certainly have. But we're not in it for the money, David. We've already got 100 billion.
God is actually up there or something.
Right. I mean, I feel like the issue with any of those things is you can explain those away with science, and you can explain them with some, you know what I mean? Like,
that's why
miracle.
I use the
right.
DNA group to try to understand what you were explaining as death and hell.
Right.
I want to clarify. I don't think that DMT is access to a spiritual world. I think that people that say that they're talking to God, that's all their ego. And I think it's a really intense dream state we have that can help us understand our existence better. I don't think it's actually us talking to anything divine.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I appreciate all my listeners appreciate that clarification. Yeah. All right, buddy. Any other questions? Are you ready to plug your stuff?
What's the seagull?
Seagull, the Utah state bird.
Isn't the seagull a holy creature from the Mormon Church?
So it's not really a holy creature. We don't really believe in holy creatures necessarily. What happened with the seagulls, the reason the seagull is the Utah state bird is because when the pioneers arrived in Utah, claimed their land, their first or one of their early crop seasons was heavily threatened by crickets. Crickets came in and were going to eat farmers were like, we are going to die because all of these crickets are going to destroy our crops. So the church essentially met together, prayed, fasted, and seagulls, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of seagulls flew over Utah and ate the crickets, thereby saving all of the crops and saving the Mormon pioneers. So that's why the seagull is the state bird.
That's enough reasoning.
Yeah, I think so.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
Well, savior's there for a locust.
Exactly. But, so we don't really believe in holy animals. There are symbols, animals are used as symbols a lot, but we don't really, deify animals or anything like that. So.
How about the musical, real quick? I know you want to.
Oh, yeah. The musical,
how
Book of Mormon musical.
Were you angry at first? When
No.
South Park episode is pretty big too.
Yeah, on my mission, I served in some, I was in Canada, Eastern Canada, and some college towns in Eastern Canada. And the only reason anybody in our age group even knew about us at all was because of South Park. So I actually...
Did it make it more difficult to...
It actually made it a lot easier to talk to them, because it's not like Matt Stone and Trey Parker. First of all, they're pretty accurate in what they portray. They do it in a comedic way, which I truly appreciate, but they're quite accurate. And there are things in that South Park episode that I think caught a lot of members of the church, if they ever saw it, would catch them off guard a little bit. And I've never felt like my church has hidden the way that Joseph Smith translated the Book of Mormon, but some do. Some, I guess, have felt that their youth leaders or whoever was teaching them in church was kind of hiding the ball on that. I never experienced that, but I felt like it made it more helpful. The musical I have not seen. I've heard some music, And from what I've
I haven't seen it either.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've heard, it sounds sort of accurate, right? Nice.
Broadway side.
Broadway,
From
baby.
downtown Lake Orion.
Wow, good for you. But Matt Stone and Trey Parker, I think, deal with kind of all religions in a similar way, in the sense that my sense is they view Mormons in particular as being very sweet, quaint people that don't try to bother everybody else.
You guys are. I've never had, especially in terms of the religious questions. We had a Mormon girl in my musical theater program in high school, and I remember the first time I asked her about the whole oh, you guys have multiple wives. She didn't get offended. She was just absolutely, let me explain it to you. And that's why that was one of my questions, because she was
right.
She explained it to me, and it was actually oh, well, that just sounds like a community having a community's back. Right. And it's funny how people can take something and spin it. But,
yeah. Now, I think we try generally. I mean, obviously, every group has people that are less good. You know what I mean? Less.
I think it's because you guys are so nice. Why people come after you, like Matt Stone and Trey Parker? Because it's they're the good kids.
Maybe. I mean, truly, I think Mormonism is one of the true American religions.
Absolutely.
So I think that's more why people come after Mormonism, is because it started in 1830 in America, and even we believe it had to start in America. There was no other country that would have allowed it to even grow, and so, yeah, I mean, as far as our faith goes, we believe we're pretty tied to American history in that way, which, if that's why people come after us, that's great. I'm fine with that. And yeah, I think our church does a pretty good job of taking, shots in stride. The church took out an ad in the Book of Mormon musical playbill that said the book is better.
When I heard that, I was like, dude, that's it's good for your community too. If I was a young teenager and my church did that, I would be like, that's the confidence in our faith. That's what separates.
Yeah, which I think is great.
We were not in the media positively very much in my teen years.
Right.
I don't know if
very tough.
I don't know if you remember the Catholic Church and all the things they did.
I do. I do have I think all that being said, Mormonism has also its issues with some of the social issues going on. I know for members of the faith in California, it was very difficult when gay marriage was on the ballot in California. And
really?
Yeah. Because members out here in California were essentially organized to politically campaign against gay marriage.
How are they doing with it now? Is it are they learning to come around so they don't lose?
I think the church, and this is, I think this is going to be a challenge for the church going forward. I think there are some issues that are social and religious. And the issue with gay marriage for my faith is that it skirts both of those. So we love, I have a gay cousin. I don't hate him. I don't think he's an evil person. In the same way, I guess I view his life activities the same way I would most of the people I hang out with every day, comics, people who are smoking, drinking, sleeping around. That's not great either, but do I think they're evil? No, I don't think they're evil. I view that all kind of the same way,
That's great. It's not you live in very much a life of Christ, and then not letting let the prophets and let the leaders worry about that. Because really, I guess the biggest fear, or at least what would make me think, if I was a leader of an organization that wanted to keep expanding the love, well, it's the one downside. I don't even say it's a downside, but it's one of the blaring truths of being gay or being lesbian is you can't reproduce, but you can adopt. which is a great way to bring other people into religion. But it makes sense that structurally would be a belief at the beginning of all religions. Is that
yeah, and I mean,
such an amazing thing already. So it's
right.
Experience that.
Right. Well, and see, like I talked to you about, we're all brothers and sisters. I believe that wholeheartedly. There's also a very important aspect of gender and sexuality, because our highest level of heaven is creating spiritual babies. And the way that we understand that's done in this life is heterosexually. So that's why, theologically, we believe in a man and woman. Maybe there's something different.
Heaven was you're there with your wife.
Yeah.
I forgot about that part. So you're not alone in creating this universe.
Right. It's only done in a partnership.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we believe that partnership has to be heterosexual. So, I don't know if that's going to get sorted out, but I feel like it's our faith. There's kind of this theological side of saying, hey, this is the way we believe things will be. But then there's the practical side of saying we have to love everybody and treat people with respect. But that also doesn't really mean we have to accept what you're doing. We can disagree and still love you. And that might not feel very good, but
hopefully our generation grows with getting more critically thinking like that.
That's what I hope.
It's the biggest thing. It's like, don't have to.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating because you
yeah.
let someone be and have different beliefs completely.
Right. Right. Which
so
I think
social control right now.
Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting for comics is that we're sort of like, we want people to disagree and agree with us all in one set, all while we're up on stage. We want them to disagree with us and then kind of come more to our side, but they have to, and that's where we hope we get laughs while we do that, right? But you only get laughs if you have disagreement and agreement all in the same set.
Yes.
So
this is one of the early things I learned in high school in English class. I got my first time I took it, I got an 8% in the class.
Uh-huh.
And they put me back with that same teacher. I was like, no, I need a new teacher. So they put me with this different lady, and everything she communicated stuck with me. I ended up getting a 94% in that class. I was able to move on to the next grade. But refuting your argument.
Yeah.
It always stuck with me. And in stand-up comedy, it's huge. If you can give people your perspective, but also come with it from the other perspective and use that to strengthen your argument and your beliefs, because you're respecting them. You're respecting the other side of the altar. But then you're also coming back to what you said. And it's a lot of people, I don't know if it's LA, because in Michigan, I would say where I grew up, everybody refutes themselves before they believe in themselves. They doubt themselves first. Where here, it's like everyone believes themselves and they don't they don't doubt themselves realistically. They don't
interesting.
Well, someone else might think or feel or believe this. And it's like, I don't know. I'm very lucky to have that refute voice in my head. Yeah,
that's great. Man, I could talk to you for forever, David, but we're going to have to wrap up, bud.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, man. Anything you got going on? Any Zoom shows? Any underground live shows you feel safe advertising? What do you got going on?
I can't stand Zoom comedy, man. I got nothing to plug with Zoom. I think I was on. I just didn't try to log on for it. It makes sense for podcasting.
I think so.
I mean, there's underground shows. Nothing. I've just been doing those mics in the park.
Yeah.
And people's backyards.
Yeah, good, man. Good. Where can people find you? And then I'll put your handle in the show notes too, so it's easy.
Instagram, I'm D_Centofanti. And Twitter, which I post a lot on Twitter. I unfortunately don't get following, but I got some good. I don't get too political. I kind of just share like silly little quips that come to my mind.
Yeah.
And, okay, so Twitter is _Funyun.
The Funyun.
FUNYON.
I love it. I love it. David, it's been a pleasure, bud. Thank you so much for joining me.
To see your face and hear your voice, man.
You too, man. You too. I missed our times at Sal's. I missed our times at various mics in the LA scene. Hopefully this can all come back in the very near future.
Yeah, same, dude. I think it was the week of COVID started. I was coming up to Burbank to see your show.
Oh yeah. And then it was and I was gonna have you on it the following week or the following month, and then well, we'll get you on there. It'll come back. It'll come back with a vengeance.
It'll be good to see you, man.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks again, David.
Leg in Vegas. Do your thing.
Thank you. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And I hope you have a great week.
Thanks,
We'll be in touch. Okay. Bye.